With VACo here is Speaker Howell to talk a little bit about the beginning of the 2017 General Assembly session. And I'll just get right into it, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for being here with us at VACo. Can you give us a little preview of what we think we're going to expect in the 2017 session this year?
Okay, well, let's start. It's going to be here before we know it, second Wednesday in January. This is the so-called short session, probably last about 46 days or so. And the big issue is always the budget. As you know, Dean, the two-year budget was written in the even-numbered years, but now in the odd-numbered years, 2017, we kind of make adjustments. And the biggest adjustment that we're looking at is the economy in Virginia continues to be pretty weak, and the revenues that have been coming in have been less than we anticipated. So initially we were looking at a shortfall counting the end of fiscal year 16 and then fiscal year 17 and 18 of about $1.5 billion. The economy for the last couple of months, September, October, November, has done a little better than we'd anticipated, and so we've cut that shortfall back, and it's probably closer to $1.2 billion or something like that at this point. Nevertheless, we still have our work cut out for us where we have to make some adjustments, and the governor has presented his amendments to the budget that he plans to promote as his way of cutting that budget deficit. And the way the process works, he'll present those proposed amendments to the legislature. The House and the Senate will look at them independently, and then they'll cross each other's proposals over, and they'll end up going to a conference committee, and we'll come up with what we think the adjustments need to be. The governor has the opportunity at that point then to make any changes or sign the bill or however. We're hopeful that he will sign whatever our recommendations are. And there's a couple of hookers in there. One of the things that has concerned a lot of us is the fact that with the economy slowing down, we were not able to give state employees the proposed raises or increases in salary that we had anticipated. And the governor, now that the income's coming in a little bit better, wants to amend that and give a one-time bonus in, I believe, December of 2018. I don't know if we'll still be around then or not, but so the legislature is going to look at that, because the legislature does feel strongly that we've got to do what we can to increase the pay of the state employees, and particularly the state police and the deputies and the Capitol policemen that work here. We
recently, at the most recent retirement commission, which you chair, we heard you say that you would like to see the additional money not be really as a bonus, but as a salary increase.
Yes.
for state employees and for state-supported local employees.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that's still viable, looking at this budget?
Well, you know, I think we need to be optimistic that the economy is going to continue to improve. I think that I think a lot has changed since the election, November 8th. I think there's probably a lot more optimism in the economy right now than there was on November 7th, and I believe that we're going to see, particularly in Virginia with our dependence on the military and government contracting and all, I think there's going to be sort of an uptick there. So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that we can do a little better than I may not be able to do the full 3% that we were talking about, but we may be able to. I hope we can do something. And I hope it'll be in the form of an increase in salary rather than a one-time bonus.
And I know you, recently visiting with us at the Homestead, our annual conference, you heard many of the localities have already given that pay raise. And so
yeah,
I think we are
yeah.
very supportive of increasing those salaries.
Yeah.
Just as soon as we can, so that we can, local governments can get some reimbursement for those raises that we've already given.
I know, and poor local.
Please keep that in mind as we go forward.
It's at the front of my mind. I will do that. I think one of the other issues that's going to come up this year, Dean, is the product that's come out of that government pension plan study that we've done. We've been looking at the Virginia retirement system, and in addition been looking at the state workforce as well as the compensation that the state workers get. And we've come up with a series of recommendations that we're going to try and enact into law this coming session. Some will be easier than others. The one that I feel most strongly about deals with the way that the retirement benefit is determined. Right now in Virginia, we have primarily what's called a defined benefit plan, where you get a certain amount every month for the rest of your life after retirement, based on how much money you were making for the previous 5 years and how long you worked for the state. And that's not really sustainable in these days, where the retirees are growing in number and they're living longer, and the workforce that pays the money into the plan is somewhat static, is not really growing, and that's not a bad thing, but the opportunity to fund these pension plans is getting more and more difficult. And in fact, we have about a $26 billion actuarial gap that we need to close. If you have what's called a defined contribution plan, that's like an IRA or a 401k, almost all private sector companies use the 401k plan rather than the defined benefit plan. And I think we need to move in that direction. And what the commission recommended is that as of a certain date, let's say January 1st, 2018, new hires to the state will have a choice between a defined contribution plan or the standard defined benefit plan. And I think that goes a long ways towards making the state more solvent, more steady from a fiscal standpoint. That's important, I think, that we look at.
You know, one of the issues with retirement is been following this all year, as you all been working through everything from DC plans to defined benefit plans to employee salaries and really the human resource piece of state government. As you know, local governments are funded. Their funded status is much better than state government.
Yes.
Right now, because we have been paying the actuarial rate for a number of years. But one of the things that we have found that really tie the hands of local government and local government employees is doing anything else such as mutual funds or anything like that. We're mandated to go with ICMA right now, because ICMA is the provider for the Virginia retirement system. And I think that a lot of local governments have money invested in Nationwide and other retirement plans, pension plans that offer 401 programs and so 457 programs. And would there be has there been any discussion or any thinking of maybe opening that up to allow employees who are currently invested in Nationwide or other programs such as Great West or some of those other programs to have wage withholding done for those programs instead of just ICMA?
I would hope so. I think the more choice that an employee has, the happier he is, and that's something that clearly came out of this study as well, is that our workforce, we have a high percentage of our workforce that's at or near retirement age. So we've got to be doing what we can to recruit new workers coming in. And I think the more choices that we can give those millennials or whatever, the better opportunity that we can give them, the better employees we'll be able to get.
A couple other issues that we are really focusing on, knowing that there's going to be some legislation coming out this year. Airbnb. We know there's going to be something with Airbnb and the possibility of taking away the ability of local government to regulate those Airbnbs. Another is wireless communication. The industry is promoting 5G, which would mean that more towers, more antennas in suburban and urban areas, but yet doing away with some local government authorities, what their request is, proposal is, but not expanding broadband services or to the underserved areas at all. How do you think that kind of legislation will fare during this session?
Well, let me talk first about the Airbnb, because I'm more familiar with that.
Okay.
And that, we had a bill last year that I think when the House bill was killed, I think the Senate bill was passed, but with a reenactment clause. I mean, it has to be looked at again. And the biggest concern that I had was the fact that the bill provided that the local governments had no control over the way these houses, these Airbnb dwellings were run. One of my supervisors was pointing out to me that 4-bedroom house across the cul-de-sac from where we live, you could put up to 10 people in that, 10 unrelated people. And we see a lot of things around where I live. I'm in southern Stafford County, Fredericksburg area, and a lot of my people will come to the area, or not a lot of my people, a lot of people come to that area to work in Washington or Quantico for 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 weeks, and they stay in these long-term stay hotels and things like that. Well, they could stay across the street from me if they wanted to, without the opportunity for Stafford County to say how many people could live in that house that were not related. And so I definitely am not in favor of a bill that takes away, that strips the authority that the local governments have to govern those type of situations. And I think because of that, I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to get the bill with the reenactment clause did not provide for that, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to provide for that. And there's some other issues in it too. I think they want to be able to make payments of the taxes that they collect, just sort of in a blank or lump sum payment without the local governments having any ability to check behind them and make sure that they're getting everything they're supposed to be receiving. So there's some problems with the bill still.
Okay.
On the wireless situation, that's always a problem about where you put the poles and where what they look like. There's one not far from me that looks like a Christmas tree. They
Right.
I guess they make them now that they look like trees, but it's still a pole in the middle of somebody's yard.
We try to get those to blend in.
Yeah.
That's part of this, part of the local.
But something needs to be done on that. I was talking with, I thought, one of the wireless people. Apparently it's a small sort of thing that they can put on the back of an existing telephone pole or whatever. So if it's not obtrusive like that, then perhaps it's something we can work with. But I would want my local government to be able to say, you can't put up a 300-foot tower behind Bill Howe's house.
Okay. I know I've got to go here. I know you're not a proponent of local business taxes, BPOL, machinery and tools, merchants capital. But I know you also understand and recognize the importance of those local business taxes to be able to levy and collect that revenue for local governments, to pay for schools, infrastructure, police, fire. Do you see any legislation coming forward during this session that would alter that, or that would try to take away that?
Not this year. I think what's going to have to happen, Dean, and I can't imagine a bill being able to pass that would just say, okay, counties, you can no longer collect either VACo or machinery and tools tax without giving you some sort of alternate revenue source. We just couldn't do that. And I don't think anybody really intends to do that. But what I think will happen is I hope in the next gubernatorial election we have a lot of talk about the need for tax reform. Our tax system is kind of based on an early 20th century agrarian kind of economy, and we really need to take a look at it. I know some of the candidates are talking about that. And I think any sort of tax reform would involve both personal and corporate, but it would also involve a way to eliminate people and machinery and tools tax, because they are a hindrance in attracting new businesses to the area, and replacing it with something that was maybe in many ways more easy to collect and more sustainable. For example, give localities another half penny on the sales tax or something like that. Whatever it would take to.
Well, we could pass that Marketplace Fairness Act at the federal level.
Well, everything helps, right. And that's not going to be the windfall that we heard about earlier. But I think it will generate some more money. So I think it's going to. I hope it comes, because I do think that it's tougher and tougher to attract businesses, particularly those that have a lot of machinery, to Virginia, knowing they're going to have to pay a pretty significant tax on that. But by the same token, you can't take it away without replacing it with something of equal value. And I think that's going to happen. Maybe not this year, not in a short session. I think you're going to see some governors talking about it during their campaigns, and if somebody that's been talking about doing it wins, then he's going to look at doing it.
Okay. So, Well, Mr. Speaker, thank you for being with us, and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you, Dean.
To Virginia,
I-
you are truly a friend of local governments.
Well, I'm not, I try to be what I can, and I think the world out of my local board and the other people.
And they think the same of you.
Well, they're, in fact, Bob Thomas is in your chain of.
Second Vice President.
Yeah, and Bob's a good supervisor, young man. And he's really a neat story. He's a very successful business guy. He started his own business and has created jobs in the area, and he finds time to serve on the county board. And does a good job.
Well, we look forward to continuing working with you during the session.
Good.
And even after the session.
Well, I hope so.
And especially as we find a way to deal with the retirement.
Yeah.
And create savings for our most prized possession, our most of our state employees.
Right.
So
I appreciate all you
Thank
do,
you for
Dean. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.